thank you so much, and thank you for offering me the possibility to address you online. In addition, and you will hear it in a second, I'm fighting a terrible cold, so it's even better that I'm online than in person, because then I will share with you not only my positive outlook when it comes to eFTI, but also all my viruses, which I better spare you from. But thank you so much, and apologies if I have some interruptions due to the cold. I was listening really with great interest to Secretary of State Hirte comments, and I really appreciate that he took eFTI beyond just not so small topic of data sharing and electronic documents. But let me go back to the focus of today, and it's always good to see those annual conferences of eFTI for EU and eFTI for all happening on a regular basis. Thank you so much for organizing it, and also thank you for this good program, which, apart from listening to keynote speeches, more importantly even involves a lot of exchanges and good ideas and brainstorming together between public authorities, industry representatives, project teams, and experts, because this is really what has brought the concept of eFTI into being. Discussions like that now we are carefully moving on with. I took note that we have somewhere like 600 days for the mandatory introduction of the requirements. I didn't do the counting, but I will note the 600 days somewhere on the side for myself. You will not be surprised at what we are trying, all of us, to achieve when it comes to digital transformation of freight transport is very much in line with the priorities of the European Commission and Commissioner Tzitzikostas, when we want to make Europe's transport system more efficient, more competitive, and obviously more sustainable. eFTI regulation is 5 years old now. It feels like yesterday, but it was 5 years ago. And of course, this big project of digitalization is something that all of you have been working very hard to contribute to. But as you all know, as Mr. Hirte said, digitalization is not an end in itself. It is a lever that will help reduce administrative burden, will help to improve service quality, will unlock new business opportunities for European companies, and also, and here I agree with him a lot, will help us to make transport or jobs in transport even more attractive. Digital tools, as we know from our daily life, enable faster, more accurate decision making. They reduce friction in daily operations, and they allow companies, both large and small, to coordinate more effectively across complex supply chains. And that is critical when we are talking about competitiveness of European logistics companies. When we remove unnecessary manual paperwork and we replace it with secure, interoperable electronic processes, we make the competitiveness of EU businesses stronger, but also we improve the resilience and productivity of our wider economy, because European economy cannot function without logistics. And basically, this is what we wanted to see when we put the eFTI regulation on the table. It establishes a harmonized legal framework to accept electronic freight transport information across member states and transport modes. The objective of the regulation for us, I hope for you, has been very clear: to allow economic operators, whenever authorities ask for information during compliance checks, to provide it electronically once, and to have that information accepted by any competent authority across the Union. And whenever I present those objectives of eFTI, it always strikes me that it sounds so easy and so obvious, but all of you know that it's everything but easy to make a system that will work well across all EU member states. What eFTI framework will do, or is doing already, is indeed removing one of the main stumbling blocks when it comes to digitalization in logistics. That's the uncertainty of whether digital information would be accepted by competent authorities. I really believe that once that barrier is gone, everything else should follow. It will lead to significant reduction in administrative burden, fewer paper checks, fewer physical stops, and faster processing during compliance checks. And it is not a small thing to achieve. It will bring, or it brings, real cost savings and efficiency gains for companies that digitalize their workflows and integrate them with their business partners. And that's a very important and it helps public authorities, enabling better enforcement and oversight based on accurate machine-readable data. And again, we also heard, and I'm really appreciating that fact from Secretary of State Hirte, that this is an important angle to FT developments for German authorities, but I really think for all transport authorities across the Union. But of course, with all that, we really are building an important part of the wider digital transformation of freight transport and logistics across the Union. But what is even more important for me, it's that FT is not an isolated initiative. It acts as a building block for this overall digital transition of Europe's transport system, defining common data sets, rules for access, technical requirements, and cybersecurity. We are building on EU and global initiatives and standards to make the system work smoothly together. Wider adoption of these standards is necessary to enable true interoperability within the sector, and very importantly, to strengthen trust, because the system will not work if there is no trustworthy solutions that will encourage everybody to use it. This uncertainty about how data will be used, accessed, or protected is one of the biggest barriers for companies considering digitalization and data sharing. So I hope that clear, uniform rules for platforms and service providers that FT is setting will and is already addressing that concern. Again, we all know about the benefits of digitalization for businesses, but also for public authorities. But I think what's more important, and here again, I come back to this important building block of the overall digitalization landscape, is that we need to have a predictable, secure digital environment where innovation can flourish, from new logistic services to data-driven optimization across all and entire supply chains. But while we have regulations that create the framework, it is very often with projects such as the ones we are discussing or you will be discussing today that help to make that framework real. That's why we decided to fund projects through Connecting Europe Facility, FT for EU, FT for All, and the newest one, FT for Life, because we believe that when building something as complex and complicated as this new digital landscape, using practical examples and using some financial support to put things on the ground, can really break that barrier of lack of trust or sometimes lack of understanding of what it is that we are doing. And it is exactly with those projects that we are turning policy into practice, testing and piloting solutions, developing practical building blocks, technical artifacts, and last but definitely not least, engaging a broad range of stakeholders across member states. I look at those projects as very much assisting national governments, and I know it's true because quite a few governments support those projects financially as well, to reach out to the wider community to make sure that FT becomes reality on the ground. And of course, what those projects help us to do is to translate legal requirements into operational tools, identify and resolve implementational bottlenecks, and trust me, for something as big and as cross-cutting as FT, those implementation bottlenecks were not few. But finally, they also broaden stakeholder involvement, because we want that approach to go as widely as possible and of course as quickly as possible to make sure that we can scale the system across the Union. FT has a highly decentralized setup for a good reason, and for that it is quite unique among EU initiatives from the very start. It has been a bottom-up initiative, as I said at the opening of my speech, and it delivers, I hope. You will tell us if you think otherwise, but I'm quite convinced you will not, what the industry has asked for. We use the Digital Transport and Logistics Forum, the DTLF, and its network of experts to prepare FT, but also to continue working throughout the implementation. because it's such a complex and multi-sided instrument that we are putting on the ground. And again, let me stress it once more. It's this cooperation that is essential and is necessary if we want this truly interoperable EU-wide exchange environment for data. So where we are now, we are moving from design put forward in the regulation to implementation. We have those 600 days where focus will be shifting to technical guidance, to artifacts, and to certification frameworks, a very important element of the overall picture, to ensure interoperability and mutual recognition across member states. We will see the emergence of FT platforms now and service providers, which will need to undergo certification to be recognized EU-wide. It is extremely important that we look at things from an EU-wide perspective. Digitalization of freight transport remains important. FT and all the work that you have been doing and you will be doing is critical if we want to create a system of data sharing across the entire transport supply chain system. I'm really happy that we could put in place CEF projects to support that. And it is now down to you to use all that to make sure that in 600 days, we indeed see the system live and kicking, if you allow me to say that. Of course, there will be many questions on the way, many fine-tuning elements that will have to be put in place, but the team on the Commission side, together with colleagues from member states and through those projects, are there to make sure that when we meet in 2 years' time, we will be able to take a stock first of how FT is delivering on all those important elements that have been presented at the beginning, but also Secretary of State and also by myself. And just one thing that I wanted to add, I really appreciate what we heard from Secretary of State, that we need to look at digitalization of transport in a wider context. It's not only exchange of information, it is also making transport system more competitive, making it more resilient, and definitely making it more attractive for new users and for new people to work in that sector, because without those people who work in transport will not function. So apologies if I went beyond the scheduled time, but thank you so much for hearing me out, and I wish you a really very, very good day, and I really very much regret that I couldn't have joined you for all those on-the-ground discussions. And see you at the latest in 600 days when FT is there. Thank you.